Welcome, everyone. I know we've got a big group coming in from the waiting room, and I'm sure there'll be more joining us as we go along here. So we appreciate you taking time to be with us. I know it's probably a little bit later in the evening for some of you than others, but thank you for joining us. So we're going to get started. I'm going to share my screen. We'll do some introductions so you can find out who it is here from the University of Michigan Dearborn that's going to be talking with you tonight. And so I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen. And hopefully everyone is seeing that. So again, welcome. This is the College of Education, Health and Human Services Graduate Open House. And I should mention that we often refer to the college as CEHHS, CEHHS. So if you hear us referring to CEHHS, we're talking about the college. And just so there's not any confusion about that. My name is Stein Brunvan. I'm the Associate Dean, Director of Graduate Programs, as well as being a faculty member here. I've got some other colleagues that I'm going to let introduce themselves here just in the order as they're listed. So I'll toss it over to Dr. Martin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I am Dr. Martin, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Department Chair for Health and Human Services.
Welcome, everyone. I am Danielle Default, and I am the Department Chair for the Department of Education, and I'll hand it over to Mrs. Clemma.
Hi there, I am Chelsea Clemma. I am the Director of Advising and Records within the Office of Student Success.
And Kristen.
Yes, so I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Studies, and I'm representing the Office of Graduate Studies. We help coordinate the graduate admission review process.
Excellent. So I will do the first roughly half of the presentation where we talk over our different programs. And then Kristen's going to share a bit about the application process and all sorts of good information about that. And I know many of you probably are wondering about getting the code that you need for the application fee waiver. That will be provided. It won't be provided till the end of the presentation. So if you're wondering about that, that will be coming at the end. Also, if you have questions as we go along, feel free to put them in the chat, and my colleagues will respond to those as they come in. If there's a question that they feel that it'd be helpful to share with the whole group and discuss right on the spot, they'll just let me know and share that question out, and we can discuss it. And so feel free to use the chat for that. If you can also please make sure to stay muted during the presentation. We're going to have a very large group here. We're anticipating a pretty large group, so that'd be helpful if you could do that. So just a little bit about the College of Education, Health and Human Services. We were the School of Education up until 1987. I'm sorry, it was established in 1987. And then in 2013, we became the College of Education, Health and Human Services, made up of the two different departments, of course, Education and Health and Human Services. Our teacher certification programs are accredited by the Council of Accreditation of Educator Preparation, known as CAPE. And so we do have a couple different programs at the graduate level that fall under that accreditation. So just a quick overview of the presentation. We will review all of our graduate programs, talk about the eligibility and review process, the application procedures, cost and financial aid, and scholarship options. So for our graduate programs, we have one doctoral program. That's our EDD, our Education Doctorate, and Education Specialist program, and 9 master's programs and 1 certificate program. So we are moving to pretty much all of our programs, nearly all of our programs being fall admit only. One exception of the master's program, the MAT, the Master's of Arts in Teaching. But pretty much everything else is fall admit only. So the next opportunity to be admitted to these fall only programs, of course, would be fall of 25. With each of our programs, we really try to keep the working professional in mind. And so for programs that have on-campus classes, we offer those in the evening, late afternoon, evening. So usually with our evening classes, they'll start at 6 o'clock, run till 9, actually a little bit before that, usually 8:45, I believe. And generally then that class, a 3-credit class, would meet only once a week. And so if you're taking a couple of classes that are in person, you might need to come to campus twice a week for those classes. And then we also have several fully online programs, and we'll point those out as we go through them. So for instance, on this slide, and I'll remind you as we come to different programs that are fully online. So you can see it's a long list, it's a growing list of programs that we have. The 2 of them are just newly going to be online in the fall. That's the MS in Health Information Technology and the MS in Healthcare Administration and Leadership. So I do want to point out that with any of these programs that are fully online, we are not able to authorize a visa, an F1 visa for these programs because, of course, you're not required to come to campus or come to Dearborn for these programs. So if you're thinking about one of these programs and are hoping that you'd be able to get a visa and come to campus, for these master's programs, that would not be possible since they're fully online. We have a couple that can be completed online depending on your course selection. So the MA in Education with no additional endorsement, because there's some flexibility in courses that you can take in that, you could pick a pathway that would be fully online, but it's possible that you could pick some classes that were face-to-face as well. And the MA in Education with English as a second language endorsement, again, depending on your pathway in that program, it could be fully online. So the EDS and EDD programs, these are programs that require you to have a master's degree. As you can see, the Ed Specialist is 30 credit hours, whereas the doctorate is 60 credit hours. And these programs are really designed for folks that have an education background and are looking really to go to the next level, possibly to work in a community college or a university type setting. Possibly to work in some kind of administrative capacity in an educational setting. Oftentimes that would be in a K-12 school setting of some kind. And in both cases, the concentration areas, there are 2 concentration areas. One is the central office administration concentration, and that's for people who want to earn the central office administration certificate through the state of Michigan so they can become district level administrators, usually superintendents, directors of curriculum, directors of assessment, that type of thing. And then the other concentration is the urban education and curriculum studies, which provides a bit more flexibility in the concentration courses that you can pick. So students in that concentration will work with their advisors to pick a pathway through the curriculum that makes sense to them based on their interests. As I mentioned, the eligibility for both of these is a master's degree earned from an accredited institution. We're looking for a minimum GPA of a 3.3 across all the transcripts that you submit. So that include your undergraduate as well as your master's degree transcripts. And then at least 3 years of professional experience, so relevant professional experience that would relate to these degrees. For our master's programs, we're looking for a bachelor's degree, again, from an accredited institution. We hope for a 3.0 cumulative GPA. I say hope for because we do a holistic review. And so just because someone's GPA might be below 3.0, we don't automatically deny. We look at their transcripts to see, is there some kind of pattern of improvement? Is their GPA the result of maybe a bad semester or 2, or a couple of classes that they really struggled with? But is there improvement in that transcript? We also look at your personal statement to make sure that what you say in your personal statement aligns with the degree that you're actually applying for, and that's a good fit for you. And we also look at your professional references. We look for 2 professional references. They don't necessarily have to be from former instructors or professors. Those are definitely helpful, but sometimes that's not possible to get. So they can be from other professional references, could be supervisors, people you've worked with or worked for, or maybe in a volunteer capacity. So we are looking for those to be professional references versus personal references. So the first master's program I want to tell you about is our MA in Community-Based Education. Most of our programs are 30 credit hour programs at the master's level, but there are some exceptions. And this is really designed for people who want to work in nonprofit organizations that have some kind of educational outreach component, or possibly teachers that are working in an urban setting and want to learn more about how they can connect with the community and create place-based education opportunities for their students in a K-12 setting. Our MA in Early Childhood Education has two different concentrations. So the first one, Early Childhood Special Education Inclusion, is designed to help people work with very young students with special needs and to learn how to better help those students meet their needs. And then the Early Childhood Admin and Leadership, which is fully online. That concentration is fully online. And that's designed to help people who want to become administrators, directors in an early childhood setting, whether it be a center or some kind of preschool. It helps prepare them for that type of career. Our MA in Education has a variety of concentrations. And so depending on the concentration, some of them require you to have a Michigan teaching certificate and others do not. So the first two do not require a teaching certificate. The first one being that MA in Education with no additional endorsement, which is kind of a strange name, but it's the most flexible master's program that we have. You have 3 core classes that you need to take, and those core classes are pretty universal across all of our master's programs. And then the remaining credits in that program, 21 credits, remain in that program, and you have some flexibility there, again, to work with an advisor to figure out what makes sense for you. The MA in Education, Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages, TESOL. This is also a fully online option. And this is for folks who want to learn more about teaching English to folks, but outside of a K-12 setting. So it does not lead to a teaching certificate of any kind, but it does prepare you to work with, it could be adult learners, it could be younger learners, but just outside of a K-12 setting. And then the 2 concentrations that do require a teaching certificate, these lead to endorsements that are administered by the state of Michigan. So they do require a teaching certificate. And there's the English as a Second Language, or ESL, and then the Reading Specialist option. And we are looking to move the Reading Specialist option to be fully online starting in the fall. And so that would be an option for people to go through that program fully online. But again, both of those endorsement options do require a state of Michigan teaching certificate. Our MA in Educational Leadership, this is another one of our fully online programs. And this is for folks who want to become building level administrators in a K-12 setting. So it meets the standards and requirements of the state of Michigan for the School Administrator Certificate. And so generally people with that certificate are principals, assistant principals. They are some kind of administrator in a school setting, not at a district level, but at the school building level. MA in Instructional Design and Learning Technologies. This has previously been called our MA in Educational Technology, but we have revised the curriculum and renamed it as well. And so this is really for helping people learn more about how to integrate technology in all sorts of different instructional settings, not just K-12, but it could be for corporate training, instructional design work to help with the development of online courses. And it's not just for online or hybrid. It could also be for face-to-face, learning how to use technology in face-to-face instructional settings. And so this is another one of our fully online programs. We have 2 master's programs in our Health and Human Services department, and the first one is our Master's of Science in Health Information Technology. I want to mention again, this starting in the next fall of 25, this will be a fully online program. So previously, this was not fully online, but we are moving to fully online with this program. And so this is for folks that want to work in the field, in the health field, specifically with information technology, learning how to analyze data for a variety of purposes, to increase and improve healthcare, to figure out how to reduce costs and maximize efficiency. And so this is definitely one of our more popular programs, but again, I want to reiterate, it'll be fully online going forward. And then one of our newest programs, the MS in Healthcare Administration Leadership, This is another 30 credit hour program and will be fully online starting in the fall. And this is for, as the name implies, it's kind of, the name says it all really. It's for folks who want to work in a healthcare setting in an administrative type role. It could be in a clinic, could be in a hospital, but some kind of health related setting, working in an administrative director, leadership type of role. The MS in Applied Behavior Analysis. So this is one of our programs that is not just 30 credits, this is 36 credits, and it meets all of the requirements for you to become a board certified behavior analyst. There is an exam that's administered by the board, the national board. That's not an exam that we provide. And so you would need to pass that exam after completing the coursework in order to become a BCBA. But this program leads to that certification. It makes you qualified to take the exam to be certified in that area.
Dr. Brunvan, one quick question with the ABA program that we received in the chat. Can I use one academic reference and one professional for my application in the MS ABA?
Certainly. Yep. We have a lot of people do that, and that would be fine. Yep. So the Masters of Arts in Teaching, this is our one option for people who want to earn a teaching certificate and get a graduate degree at the same time. You see it's 37 credit hours. Part of that is because you have a full semester of student teaching rolled into this. And there are many different options there for the different grade bands that you can select. So in the state of Michigan, over the past couple of years, we've been transitioning to a grade band structure for teacher certification. And so this particular master's qualifies you to become a secondary teacher in the state of Michigan. So you can see we have 4 different content areas: math, English language arts, science, and social studies. And then with each of those concentration or content areas, there are 2 different grade band levels. So there's 5th to 9th grade or 7th to 12th grade. And so as you might expect, with those individual grade band certifications, you would be qualified to teach your content area in those different grades. This is our one program that has rolling admissions. So we do admit fall, winter, and summer for this program. In addition to the 37 credits that you would need for the master's, there may be additional classes you need to take in math, language arts, science, or social studies, depending on the coursework you completed in your bachelor's in order to meet the content area requirements of this program. So we can do a transcript evaluation for you so that you know exactly how many additional credits you might need beyond the 37 required that are listed for the master's itself. We have one certificate program, and that's the TESOL certificate, and that is 15 credits, and similar to the master's program and the Masters of Education with TESOL. This again prepares you to work with folks learning English as a second language outside of a K-12 setting. Even though it's called a certificate, we just want to make sure you're clear that it does not lead to teacher certification. The certificate in this case is one given by the College of Education, Health and Human Services. It is not given by the state of Michigan. And this is fully online. So I'm going to turn it over to Kristen now to talk through things related to the application process and financial aid and all sorts of other good stuff.
Thank you. So I'm going to go over the different parts of the application process in order to help you get from starting the application to getting an admission decision. So the first step would be completing the online application. It does require a $60 application fee in order to submit it. There will be a fee waiver code provided, as noted on the screen, that can be used through November 17th. So the application does need to be submitted by that date in order for that code to be valid to waive that fee. There are different documents that are noted within the online application. Some are required, some are optional in order to submit, but getting to a complete admissions file is not needed to submit the application itself. So there are some items that can be submitted, separately after. Within the online application, you'll want to upload a statement of purpose. There is just a general prompt within there if you're not sure what to cover within your statement of purpose. Generally speaking, though, why do you want to pursue that program? What has made you prepared for this program to succeed in it? And how does it fit with your overall goals? And the EDD does require an additional statement as well that is provided within the application. You'll also upload a current resume or CV, and then you'll request your letters of recommendation. So in the online application itself, you'll provide the recommender's name, email address, and then a personalized URL will be sent to them by email that they can respond to directly to provide their recommendation. This would be for all of the degree seeking programs. If you were interested in the TESOL graduate certificate, that does not require recommendations in order to apply to that program. You have the option to submit your transcript within the application. You can either upload unofficial documents into the online application. You can also send unofficial copies by email after submitting your application. We also accept official copies, either electronically or physically sent to our office. Any of those options are perfectly fine. You don't need to submit, multiple different methods during the admissions process. But if you are admitted with unofficial documents being used, you would be required to provide the official ones by the end of your first term of enrollment. So for a fall admit, that would mean that you would generally have until December in order to submit those documents, with classes starting around the start of September. Anyone whose native language isn't English would be required to demonstrate proficiency in one of these approved manners. So one would be a valid test score, meaning that was taken within the last 2 years. We accept the TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo, and MET exams with our minimum scores posted. And then we also have waiver options. So one is having a US, UK, or Australian bachelor's or graduate degree, or being able to provide supporting documentation to show that your medium of instruction was exclusively English for the duration of your bachelor's or graduate degree. Anyone who has transcripts from outside the US would also be required to provide a transcript evaluation. So there are 2 options to meet this requirement. One is the recommended avenue, which is to submit an approved third-party course-by-course evaluation. We accept a number of vendors. Our preferred vendors are ECE, IEE, the evaluation company formerly known as Spantran, WES, or Educational Perspectives. We'll also accept any NACES member. So there's a number of other vendors that aren't listed on there that we would accept as well. The average cost is around $200 for the course-by-course evaluation type. And if you pay for an approved third-party evaluation, are offered admission and enroll with us, we do offer a reimbursement of up to $200 towards your student account as well, in order to help offset the cost of going to a third party. You can also request an internal evaluation to be completed by UM Dearborn staff. That process doesn't begin until all other required materials are received. For programs with rolling admissions, that means that when your file is otherwise complete, it would be added to the evaluation queue, and it takes about 4 to 6 weeks to advance from being added to the queue to having the evaluation completed and then being able to route your file for an admission decision. For hard deadline programs, meaning the ones that review all at once in sort of a more cohort basis, those are completed to meet internal deadlines. So in either instance, you'll want to make sure that everything is submitted in time to get a decision based on when you're expecting one. And all of that information goes into more detail on our how to apply instructions, which is where the is shown. For the EDD and HIT programs, that is where you would have more of that internal deadline process met in order to get the decision. All files are routed at once after that March 15th deadline for the fall admission. The other programs, which is all other ones except for MAT, admit based on a priority and then file basis. So as files are ready, they will be routed rolling to get a decision back. But we recommend that everything is in by March 15th in order to have ample time for a decision and planning ahead of the start of the term. And we will accept materials and applications up to May 15th. So there's a little bit of a buffer between those 2 deadlines in order to make sure that everything gets submitted in time. But May 15th would be that last date that you would be able to submit the application or materials for those programs. We do recommend early submission so that you have enough time to see that everything that you've been submitting either directly or through third parties like your recommenders, evaluations, etc., are all in by the date that they need to be in order to make sure that you can get a decision for your preferred midterm. The MAT is the only program that admits for multiple terms with more advisory deadlines, and the date to get to a complete application is a little less strict. So there's a domestic advisory deadline for those who don't need a student visa, an international student visa deadline, and then the last day to submit. And that's based on the timeline for when classes would start and when you would need to request a student visa from the Office of International Affairs if you needed a visa to attend. If you're interested in the MAT, the last day to submit for winter 25 is December 13th, since that one does admit for each midterm. I also like to give a general timeline of what that looks like from the point of submitting the application to getting a decision. So when you submit your application, it usually is about 5 to 7 business days for processing. That's really a sort of general range. It could be shorter. It's just dependent on what our volume is at that time. So like right now, we're right in the middle of all of our recruitment events. So we're getting a lot of applications at once. But if you were to submit, a few weeks after, it might be that you experience that shorter time because we're not having as much volume come in each day. The following day after you submit, you'll get a confirmation email saying thanks that you've submitted your application. Here's your application ID that you can use to check in with the Office of Graduate Studies on updates for your application. As soon as you submit, you will see a personalized checklist generated in your admissions portal. We do ask that you wait until processing is completed before you begin to use, as some of the details that you might have uploaded in the online application aren't actually marked as complete until someone is able to review them. So for example, if you upload your transcripts into the online application, it'll show them as outstanding as soon as you submit. But then once someone has processed your application and looked at your uploads, then that would be marked complete for what you've uploaded into the system. If your file is complete at that point, it would be able to move to the next stage. If it's not, and we're still waiting for documents in order to get to that complete admissions file, each time you submit documents, it's a 3 to 5 day timeline for processing before you would see that update in your admissions portal. When you log in, it'll show % complete on one side that's related to the application itself, so that actual online application, and the other side, it displays a checklist, which would be looking for those supplemental items. So it's really the checklist that you're monitoring at that point to get to check, green check marks all the way down to indicate that all of those items have been received. If you requested an internal evaluation, then we would be able to move you to that stage once everything is complete. If it's either not applicable to you, or you've submitted a third party for whatever reason that you don't need that internal evaluation, we would then move to the decision review stage. So there's the files that are sort of held and reviewed at once, which would be the HIT EDD. And for everything else, we're routing them. And 2 to 3 weeks after it's routed is when we would expect a decision to come back and be communicated to you. I'm going to move into costs next, but I like to do sort of a touch point beforehand so that you understand how we would be classifying you between in-state and out-of-state costs. Our residency classification guidelines are set by the Board of Regents for all campuses, and the definitions might be a little bit unique to other government bodies for what you might be used to. If any of the flags established by the Board of Regents apply to you, then you would need to apply for in-state classification. Some of the flags that we see most commonly at the graduate site are what I've listed here, but the full list is available both at that URL and in the online application itself to make sure that everyone has, clear understanding of how they would be classified for their tuition purposes. So the most common flags we see is living outside the state of Michigan in the last 3 years for any purpose, which includes education or employment, attending a college or university outside the state of Michigan that does not have a year cap on that. It's at any time, not being a U.S. citizen, or attending any campus as a non-resident in the past. And any questions can be directed to the residency classification office. Their office is on the Ann Arbor campus, and they support all 3 campuses, so Ann Arbor, Dearborn, and Flint. Based on the current year's tuition rates, this is what it would look like for the assumption of each course being 3 credits for a Michigan resident, a non-resident in an on-campus or hybrid program, or a non-resident in a fully online program. So the tuition rates are a little bit different for each of those 3 categories. And it shows you what that would look like for your tuition and fees for taking 1 course, 2 courses, or 3 courses. Full-time at the graduate level is met at 8 credits, but with most of our courses being 3 credits each, it's usually that you would have that 9-credit course load in order to be enrolled full-time. I do want to point out that the non-resident on-campus hybrid category does include the Graduate Dearborn Scholarship Award in that amount. So that is a scholarship that's automatically offered to degree-seeking students enrolled in an on-campus or hybrid program who are classified as out-of-state. So that includes international students. It's any student who's classified as a non-resident. And that rate for how much of a scholarship is awarded each term is based on how many credits you're enrolled each term. So it has a maximum allowance of $5,000 per term, $10,000 per year.
Kristen, I see we just had a question about is funding available for the online master's program? So I think this is the perfect slide for that question. That non-resident fully online program, that does reflect, as Kristen mentioned, a reduced rate for non-residents that are in a fully online program. So you can see that that rate is not much higher than the Michigan resident rate. And so that is in a sense, that's funding for non-residents. It's obviously if you're a resident of Michigan, you're already getting the lower in-state rate, but we don't have other specific funding for the online master's programs other than that non-resident fully online program rate. I know Kristen's going to talk about some other scholarship opportunities that may be applicable to folks, though.
Yes, the rate that's shown is already including the discount that's being offered for those programs. So this is sort of giving you that automatic baseline for anything that would be something that you don't have to separately apply for. If you are a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen, you can submit the FAFSA in order to see what federal aid you might be eligible for. I do have the breakdown of where the federal requirements are for full-time, 3/4 time, and half-time are on there. You cannot take 1 class and receive federal aid, and certificates are also not eligible for federal aid. I do want to point out as well that federal aid at the graduate level is really loans. So there's the Graduate Plus loan, the graduate loan are the 2 funding options that are really available at the graduate level. We don't have scholarships or grants that the federal government offers for graduate programs. From the FAFSA standpoint, at least. As I mentioned, we do have the Graduate Dearborn Scholarship, which is pretty substantial at a $10,000 annual award. There are also other scholarships that might be applicable to different students. So if you are a Dearborn employee, there is a scholarship for that at 25% off of tuition, which can be used in addition to the tuition support SPG. We also have 20% off for the Community Service Personnel Scholarship and 20% off the Michigan Nonprofit Association Scholarship. So those are really specific to different employers. There are other scholarships that you might match to. So I have noted on there Scholarship Universe, for example. Once you've been offered admission, you can create a profile within that portal and answer different questions in order to see what both internal to Dearborn and external scholarships that participate on that platform that you might match to. So it tries to help you see both internally and externally to the university what might be some scholarships available for you to apply to in order to round out your funding sources. And then, of course, you can also explore other private scholarship offerings as well that are external to the university. And there's just some links in order to help you to look at some of those options.
This would probably be a good time to mention that we will make this presentation available to folks, as well as the recording of the whole presentation available to you as well. So certainly don't need to
Yes,
try
so
to
you'll be able to click on
write
all of
this all
these
down.
links after. And it's sometimes relevant, so I like to bring it up early, is if you already have graduate credits from elsewhere, we do have a transfer in to count towards our degrees. So for the master's degrees, we allow up to half within the UM system. Outside of the University of Michigan system, which includes Ann Arbor, Dearborn, and Flint, it would be up to 9 credit hours. And all credits earned in a graduate certificate program can be applied towards a graduate degree if they're UM Dearborn credits. When you get to the specialist and doctoral level, then you're really looking at program-specific requirements that you would be, working with your advisor on. And there's additional eligibility criteria that applies where you would want to look at these policies that are posted on our website in order to get more of that detail, which includes like years of age since the course has been taken, the grade that was earned, things like that. But this at least gives you some idea if you're looking at different schools and wanting to transfer credit in what those, minimum threshold or maximum threshold rather might be for what credits you would be able to bring in.
So one other thing that I'll mention about transfer credits is, as Kristen said, there are different requirements for any credit that's brought in, but these would be credits that have not already been applied to another degree. So if you've earned a master's, we can't take 9 credits from that master's and apply it to a master's that we offer. So it'd have to be credits you've taken but have not been put towards a degree somewhere else, in addition to meeting the other requirements. So here we have some contact information. Again, we will share this slide or this whole presentation with you, so you have this available. But we want to make sure you have this information, and then also want to provide an opportunity. I know people have been asking questions in the chat as we've been going along, but if you've got other questions you want to ask, I don't know if any of my colleagues, if there's a question you saw come up quite a bit and that you think should be addressed for the whole group right now, feel free to shout out. But otherwise, if people have questions, you can put them in the chat. You can unmute if you'd like to just ask the question of the group as well. I'll go ahead and stop sharing so I can see things a little bit more easily. Great question about the teaching certificate for the MAT. So yes, the teaching certificate that you would earn would be for the state of Michigan. So many states will reciprocate with the state of Michigan certification, but the initial certificate that you would be eligible for would be in the state of Michigan, and then it would be up to whether other states would acknowledge that certificate and reciprocate as to whether or not you could earn it in another state. Oh, for the deadline for the fall for the MS and Health IT, March 15th. That's our fall deadline for all of our fall admit programs.
For those who are looking to do the internal evaluation option, it's just a question in the online application. So in the online application, it will ask you, do you have non-US transcripts? And you would answer yes or no to that. Anyone who says, yes, I have non-US transcripts would then say, I either plan to submit an approved third party to meet this requirement, or I'm requesting the internal evaluation. And that would be how we would know whether or not to expect a third party from you or to add you to our evaluation queue. If your circumstances changed and either you wanted a quicker decision and you requested the internal initially, but wanted to switch to the third party so that you can get a sooner decision, then you would be able to do that and just send us an email saying, hey, I actually want to switch. And conversely, you can do the same for the other option. You can say, initially, I planned to do a third party, but circumstances have changed. I need to request the internal, and we would be able to update that on your application as well. So we do ask for an initial, which pathway you're planning on taking to meet that requirement, but you are able to change your response as needed as well later on in the application process.
So I see we have a question about funding for the EDD program. We unfortunately do not have assistantships or grants specifically for that program. I will mention that non-resident students automatically are charged at the resident in-state rate for the doctoral program. So that makes it a little bit more affordable for international and non-resident students. But we don't have specific funding or scholarships for that aside from that in-state rate. Employer will be providing funding for my degree. Can anyone on the panel speak to this? Not sure who to reach out to. I'm not sure.
It depends on the employer's process, really. So usually they have either vouchers that they have you able to submit to the university to work with the student accounts office to coordinate that payment process. If the employer does more of like a reimbursement method where you would pay initially and then be reimbursed later, then you would work with what documentation they need from the university in order to do that reimbursement. It really varies by employer. But if you have any questions reaching out to financial aid or the one-stop student services area, they'd be able to give you a little bit more information as they deal with that, more directly than admissions or advising does.
And then as far as the application fee waiver, if I'm not mistaken, that gets sent out to folks once we verify that you attended. Is that correct, Kristen?
Yes. So tomorrow we'll code everyone who attended tonight to say that they've attended, and we'll start sending out messaging by end of day Monday. That would give you a link to the recording, copies of the slides, and that fee waiver code with the expiration date in an email directly so that you are able to quickly reference that. We'll also send reminders, 2 reminders, either 2 weeks after the event, you'll probably get one, and then a few days before it expires as well, just to remind you that that code is there to use and make sure that you are able to, have ample notice that it's going to be expiring soon.
Okay. Question about, is there education course, a program that I can apply for without master's if you're applying with a bachelor's? Yeah, all of our master's programs, you'd be eligible if you got a bachelor's degree from an accredited institution. The only programs that would require you to have a master's in order to be eligible to apply would be our doctorate and specialist. So yes, you would be eligible to apply for any of our master's programs if you have a bachelor's degree. Okay, Ismail, you applied to our the main campus in Ann Arbor, University of Michigan. If you applied to the School of Ed there for the PhD program, we've got multiple people on the panel here who can speak to the quality of doctoral programs at the University of Michigan Ann Arbor. I went through their PhD program, so hopefully you'll be quite happy with it. And Lisa, that's where you got yours, right? Not necessarily in the School of Education, but which is fine. Reclassification.
I can take that question.
Great.
If you need to go through the reclassification process with the Residency Classification Office, it is a separate application. So you'll want to submit our admissions application first because you'll need your UMID in order to start their application process. I do recommend that you start it as soon as you've submitted your application and received your UMID by email, because it can be a quite lengthy process. Like I said, they do support all 3 campuses in their reclassification requests, so that is a pretty decent number. If you have a UMID from undergrad, you would still need the graduate application on file because they pull information from your current application in order to review their, everything that you've submitted in order to determine if reclassification would be approved. So you at least don't need to wait to get the UMID by email, but you would need to still submit your application.
I see there's
And
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I did want to mention something else about the application fee waiver that I usually mention earlier, so I apologize. But anyone who has not their full name as the login for the event, you'll want to use your full name. Either update it directly, you can use the little by your name, you'll see the ability to rename yourself. You can also send me a direct chat with your name, either way, but we can't code you as attended if we can't locate your specific registration. So putting your last name in there, or like I said, chatting me allows us to make sure that we can accurately check you in. If there's multiple people with the same first name, we won't know who to check in. And so we wouldn't really, guess at who was the one who actually attended. So just making sure that you add that, in there or chat me would be great to make sure that you get the correct follow-up message.
So a couple other questions I want to address. There was a follow-up. It looks like that you're asking about, do we have a PhD program that you could apply for with the bachelor's? Just a quick reminder, we don't have a PhD. We have an ed doctorate program, an EDD. And no, you wouldn't be able to apply for our ed doctorate program with just a bachelor's. You'd need a master's. And I think you're going to find that would be true pretty much of most PhD programs. I mean, it's possible you might find a PhD program that as a PhD master's combined program that you could potentially apply to with a bachelor's degree, but we do not have that option. And as far as master's students in the Ed Leadership Program, you do not have to write a dissertation as part of the master's program. The dissertation is a requirement of the doctoral program, but not the master's program. If you have a bachelor's of education management, what educational program would you recommend for me? It kind of depends on what you want to do. So with just based on the name of that bachelor's program, I think any of our education, well, really any of our master's programs you'd be eligible for because you have a bachelor's degree. So it all depends on what you want to do ultimately with your master's degree. So that one, sorry, I don't mean to be, elusive in my answer, but that's what I always say to students. What is it you want to do? Just as a reminder, the fee waiver, that code that we're going to provide is only going to work for application fee waiver for our programs at University of Michigan Dearborn. So if you've applied to a program on the Ann Arbor campus, that fee waiver code is not going to help you. We're not involved in the application process at all. The campuses are completely separate in that regard, and so you would have to reach out to the Ann Arbor campus to see if there's some way that you could get an application fee waiver for their programs. Can someone with HND also apply? I'm not sure.
No, not strictly with an HND. So if you have an ND HND combination or a standalone HND, we don't consider those credentials to be equivalent to a U.S. bachelor's degree. You would need to either complete a bachelor's degree, or commonly students will do a one-year PGD, and the combination of ND, HND, PGD will meet equivalency with once you have all three of those credentials, or and HND, PGD, the two of those, but still that HND, PGD, level of credentials. Without the additional credential beyond the HND, you wouldn't be eligible for any of our graduate programs at UM Dearborn.
All right. I learned something new tonight. other questions? I see that Kristen put the coupon code there for the application fee waiver. Just note the deadline, but when you need to submit your application by, that's different than the fall, application deadline, but that's the deadline by which you can use the code.
Yeah. So the code is valid for about a month after the event, and it expires at midnight Eastern Standard that day. So like I said, we'll be sending reminders as that date approaches to make sure that if you're planning on utilizing that code, that you're able to do so.
Key milestones, experiences to expect during the first and second year of the master's program in education. So if you're speaking about specifically the MA in education or more broadly about our master's programs, because we start in the fall, we're going to create kind of a unofficial cohort type experience for students as they move through the different programs. And so one of the nice things about that is that you'll get to know your classmates. You'll see them in a lot of classes together. And you'll also get to know your instructors very well. And so some of the programs will have project-based type experiential learning type opportunities. They might have experiences where you're out in the field working with in a school perhaps, or where you're able to do an internship as part of the program. And so you're getting real life experiences working in a relevant field. And so those are some of the different experiences that you might have. There aren't necessarily a thesis or something like that you need to do with each program. But each program does generally have some kind of culminating activity or class capstone, whether it be an internship, a portfolio, something of that nature that is part of it. And so those are often, you could look at those as maybe milestones and different key experiences that you'll have in the programs. Any other questions before we let you all go? And this certainly won't be your last opportunity to ask questions. We want people to reach out at any time, and we're happy to respond to the questions you have and direct you to resources as needed. Correct. The ABA program does require you to to have a clinical placement so that you'll be able to get your hours in. You have to get quite a few hours in through that program. And so if you, as an international student, we would work with you on finding a placement. It wouldn't necessarily be on campus because we don't have a relevant clinic on campus. But that would be something I could put you in touch with our primary faculty member in that program, and she would be able to give you a better idea of how you might be able to get connected with the clinic and get employment there. But that we recognize that does make it a little tricky for international students. But in order to get those hours in, we need to make sure people are employed in a relevant, eligible setting before they start the program.
And we do have international students participate in the program, so you would not be unique to that situation.
Yeah, thanks. So a question on the MS in behavioral and ABA. Well, first of all, you're welcome, everyone who's showing their appreciation and thanks in the chat. We appreciate you coming out and joining us. As I mentioned at the start, we know this is significantly later in some parts of the world, depending on where you're joining us from. So thank you for taking the time to join us. As far as the Master's of Science in ABA, so this is it's a specific certification that you can earn through a national certifying board to work with individuals that are on the autism spectrum pretty much exclusively. So oftentimes it would be in some kind of clinical setting to work with them on different behavior modification strategies. So it's not generally a position that would be in a K-12 school, but more so in a clinical setting. And hopefully that provides a bit more detail about that. It's a pretty strict set of classes and field experiences because of the requirements that we need to meet of the National Certification Board. They have a prescribed curriculum that we have to follow, and also a prescribed set of experiences that students need to gain. That's one of the reasons that program is 36 credits versus 30. We can't fit it into just 30 credits. Again, we want to thank everyone for your time and attention and for joining us. We will get the slide deck out to everyone and the recording so that in case you want to watch this again or share it out, you can. If you got other questions that come up, you can reach out to us. ABA is not a STEM designated program. I see that question. So it is not STEM designated. The only STEM designated program we have is the MS in Health Information Technology. But again, as a reminder, that's an online program. But that is our only STEM designated program at this time.
And I just put in the chat the link to the list of the STEM designated programs at UM Dearborn.
Excellent. Yes, just in case you don't know, the university is made up of 4 colleges, and so there's a College of Engineering and Computer Science, College of Business, and College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters. So you'll probably find a lot of those STEM-related programs are in the College of Engineering and Computer Science, but we do have the one in CEHHS. All right, thanks again, everyone. I hope you have a good rest of your evening. And please let us know if you have questions along the way. And I certainly hope to be reviewing your applications in the near future. So take care. And again, thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.